Okay, so if there are questions when Adrianne opens things up for questions, you can go ahead and use the chat to ask questions, and I will be monitoring the chat as well, because Adrianne's going to be busy presenting. So we will make sure that we end on time here, so I can free up the Zoom account for the next session. But yeah, let me introduce Adrianne Ryland. She will be presenting her on AI, The Struggle is Real. And I'll turn it over to Adrianne, and I will share screen here with her slides.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jesse. All right. Well, hello there. My name's Adrianne Ryland. So during this session, please feel free to ask any questions in chat. I will have a few questions for you all just to hear what your experience has been with artificial intelligence in your own classrooms or your own corner of the world. Next slide. So I am the lead content developer with iLearn Collaborative. iLearn Collaborative creates customized professional developments with the option of college credit for schools and districts across the globe to support best practices in education. The end goal is to provide equity in education for all students through student-centered learning. And now that we see technology taking over, we really are embracing that and trying to help educators overcome setbacks or think of new ways to provide that education. I was a blended teacher for 11 years. I was a dean of students for 2 years. But now my passion is supporting educators in creating a healthy culture for both staff and students, and also to provide processes for things, to provide that clarity that educators so badly want. I do have 3 dogs. I'm addicted to raising dogs. I have 2 teenage boys, hence why I've got gray hair now. But I love Colorado. I've lived here for 37 years, but my end goal is to end up in a non-landlocked state. So if any of you are on the coast, I am instantly jealous of you. My retirement plan is to collect seashells. That's all I want to do. So during my time as Dean of Students, I had many instances of handling academic integrity or lack thereof. It mostly involved Googling multiple choice questions or finding quizzes online and copying from there. And there's 3 alarming sides dealing with this that I discovered, and that's what inspired this presentation. Students would repeat the behavior because it was easier to keep on cheating, and there weren't really consequences to what they were doing. Teachers would even dismiss it because it wasn't a class that really mattered for the student's future. So if a student was focused on becoming a theater major and they had been caught cheating in statistics, teachers would kind of dismiss it because in the end, that class didn't really matter. And there's a big issue with that. And lastly, parents would defend their kids for quote unquote, using their resources. Isn't that what teachers teach kids to do anyway? So this is a battle that students are facing everywhere. Go ahead and change the slide. So during this workshop, we do have a few goals. We're going to look at several aspects of artificial intelligence that impact your students. We'll first take a look at who our students are and examine their relationship with technology. We will define AI and look at the impact it has, both positive and harmful. We'll look at academic integrity and how it has moved past the traditional definition of plagiarism. And then finally, we'll look at how to take this knowledge and apply it to your classroom or expertise to provide accountability and authentic assessments. So let's go ahead and get started. Next slide. I'd love to know where everyone is coming from right now. So go ahead and share your grade level or content area, or even the company you're with, so that I can get to know you a little bit more and tailor this workshop to more of what applies to you. right, we've got a good variety going on here. Good. Oh, great, we've got higher education. So this is very applicable to what you all are doing. Great, thanks for introducing yourself, Erin. eLearn developer, wow, that's great. So you have a lot of higher education. That's fantastic because one of my resources is targeted right to them and it's shocking to me. Good, some instructional designers. Welcome, I've just entered this world of instructional design, so kids and I'm in good company. Wonderful. Well, good. Then the student population we're talking about is definitely a little bit older. And so I will make sure to focus on that during the presentation. Thank you so much for sharing. Next slide. Hey, Pikes Peak Community College. All right, go Colorado. So who are our students that are in our classrooms every day? All middle, high school, and majority of college students belong to Generation Z. Now, there's lots of negative ideas floating around about this generation, but what truly describes them? And do know that I'm speaking in generalizations here. I do not want to isolate any group or assume that everyone believes this, but general beliefs about Generation Z. So the first and most common trait, and I'm sure you've heard this one before, is that the digital world is very familiar to them. They are digital natives. Some say these kids are even born with a tablet in their hands. If they need something, there's an app for that, or Google is right there. Kids pick up games and new digital tools so quickly. If you've ever seen a kid play Fortnite or one of those like first-person games, it is amazing to see how fast they can control a screen. But beyond that, how quickly the screen is changing. For me, if I change tabs too quick, I get dizzy. So it's amazing that they've adapted to that world and they function very well within it. For this generation, the world does not feel safe. There's two very clear sides in politics, and kids and young adults are very influenced in their beliefs through social media. And this can be dangerous because social media fluctuates on what's popular. Someone can start a trend and all of a sudden people are following that trend, and it's not really based on unbiased fact. The world shut down for 2 of their very formative years. Many of your students didn't even get a high school graduation or prom. Sports were shut down for a while and kids couldn't earn scholarships or have that outlet for their passion in that way. This led to a lot of anxiety, depression, and social fear. And I'm sure you're seeing that in your classrooms as well. Or if you're an instructional designer, perhaps the instruction you're designing is more focused on social emotional health than it ever has been before. They've also grown up in a world where school shootings are a real possibility. We've just heard about 2 in the last couple of weeks. And even on college campuses, they're occurring. While most educators grew up in a time where fire alarms were all we practiced, or if any of you are as old as I, remember stop, drop, and roll, because apparently we would spontaneously combust in flames and they had to learn how to handle that. But now, students are learning how to hide in a corner, to stay quiet, and practice hearing the alarms and the sounds that would go along with the situation of an active shooter. Generation Z does tend to be more accepting of others. There are many facets to their acceptance, the gender and sexuality issues they face today, the bullying, how they really don't have tolerance for anymore, and it's being called out more often than not. And then just wanting to get along. These kids just want to live in peace for the most part. On the other hand, we're seeing these students that are quite brave online, and they'll express opinions and thoughts through social platforms, believing that it won't have a lasting impact or that it doesn't really matter, and it really does. Gen Z kids do worry about their future, and I'm sure you all see this more than ever at the college level. They feel unprepared, mostly because of the COVID pandemic. They missed out on some instruction there and some life skills as well. Parents are more hands-off than ever, and boundaries are blurred for many students. So this leads to blurred lines between childhood and adulthood. Kids are growing up so fast nowadays. I love using the word nowadays. I feel like a wise old soul when I say that. But I know when I was 13, I wasn't thinking about managing 5 social media accounts, responding quickly to people before they think I ghosted them, or not too quickly because I might be looking like I'm desperate, all while considering, what am I going to do when I grow up? So with all of this pressure, kids and young adults are leaning more on artificial intelligence to help them out. So how does this impact our teaching? Next slide. So first, we need to define artificial intelligence, so we're all working from the same foundational belief as we move forward. So at its foundation, AI is the process of using computers and machines to mimic human perception, decision-making, and other processes to complete a task. Or put differently, AI is when machines engage in high-level pattern matching and learning in the process. That scares me. A machine is learning how to mimic human behavior. And think of how far they've come even in the last year or since COVID with our digital learning platforms. It's crazy to think that a computer is now mimicking a human. So how many of you have Alexa or a similar device in your home? Or how many of you use social media and all of a sudden an ad will pop up that applies instantly to you? Now, I swear I've had a few instances where I will just think about something. I won't even say it out loud. And then in an hour or so, an ad pops up on my Google search page. I don't know how they do it, but they're doing it. This is how artificial intelligence is becoming a normal part of our everyday lives. And for those of you, even Eric with your bomb drills, thanks for adding that in. That's amazing. Thanks, Kathy. It's becoming normal for us. But think of these young adults and kids, they've grown up this way. This is completely normal for them to have that level of technology in their lives. Or here's the biggest kicker. Don't you love it when a website requires further verification and it asks you through a CAPTCHA to verify if you're human? So a robot is asking me, a human, to prove that I'm human using robot tools to do so. That blows my mind. Makes me laugh every time, especially when I mess it up. Like I didn't get all the stoplights or something. How does that happen? So it's normal for these kids to hit a button on their phone, ask a question, and get an instant response. That instantaneous satisfaction or answer is also what's standing in our way of this use of artificial intelligence. Kids aren't used to working for things anymore. So in education, there's 2 sides to artificial intelligence: the positive ways we can use it and the harmful impact it can have on student learning. Change slides. So even though we don't really hear about it, there are many positive aspects to artificial intelligence in education. Virtual tutoring and progress tracking are 2 powerful tools. So for example, there's online curriculums like Alex Math, and it has students complete an initial knowledge check, and then based on their results, it adjusts the entire year of curriculum for them. So it takes out what they've mastered and only leaves in what they need to work on. Also, automatic grading. I'm sure all of you at universities have heard about this or experienced it. With the high enrollments now with online universities and colleges, automatic grading is very helpful because I can't imagine grading 300 essays a week in that time. College prep tests like the AccuPlacer auto grade those scores and essays for quick results that people can use now instead of having to wait a few weeks or a few months for the results, like with SAT or many state assessments. Many standardized tests provide insight into scores. So it'll give them a score, but then beyond that, it will recommend lessons and standards for students to learn to improve their scores. And that's all instantaneous and great tools for teachers to use to provide that individualized or small group support. Now think of emails and Google Docs. They predict our words and give suggestions for professional writing. Grammarly can actually rewrite your work to make it sound better. I use Grammarly hundreds of times a day. In fact, right now I'm looking at my script and I have things underlined that Grammarly really wants me to correct. There is a downfall to this though. I'm sure we've all experienced a time when autocorrect didn't quite work out. And hopefully it wasn't too traumatizing for your professional career or even your personal life. Schools can use AI to track attendance and grades to provide early warnings of harmful patterns and student success. Even your universities are starting to track attendance and say, why isn't this student showing up to school? Or what happened with this dip in their grade? This allows for intervention from teachers, professors, or even counselors to step in and intervene at those times to make sure that whatever negative pattern the student is developing, we can intervene and hopefully turn that around. There's immediate feedback and data that's being used right now. Hopefully, with the use of technology, phones and computers and Chromebooks, there is universal access to artificial intelligence to all students and educators. Now that's a positive because many times AI can be used to help design an outline or again, predict what the student needs to learn in order for them to progress with their mastery. Excuse me. Now there are some harmful impacts on the other side of it. The main one is how are we ensuring student privacy, especially in K-12 schools. There are many districts that are now having to have processes to whitelist apps and sites because they can't ensure that the student's information won't go beyond that specific site or if there's age limits. So understanding how AI could possibly cross an ethical barrier and distribute student information to who knows who or where or how they'll use it is a big concern. There aren't any real ethical boundaries right now when it comes to AI, unless it's explicitly stating in the privacy statement. AI cannot replace teachers because young adults and students need that human interaction and individualized attention and care. Machines cannot detect the difference between the lack of opportunity and the lack of ability. So let's say you get a test score back or you see a pattern of work coming in from a student. As a teacher, you'll understand what opportunities they've been given. Perhaps they've come from a background of school where there were gaps or they've transferred schools many times. So there really isn't any consistency there in their education. Or maybe they don't have access to technology at home, and that's a lack of opportunity for them for learning. Or is it a lack of ability? A teacher can tell, I've provided interventions. We actually have an MTSS process going. There's a 504 plan in place for this student with the Academic Help Center. And now we know it's a lack of ability. AI cannot detect that. It's going to spit out a basic data score without that human piece to it. Let's see here. I kind of lost my place. Students lack critical thinking skills. Like I was saying earlier, they can type in a question or even just speak into their phone and out pops the answer or a solution or a site that can tell them how they got to the solution. They aren't working towards that final goal of how do we work? Also, AI is kind of taking the pro out of procrastination. I know all of us at some point in our life have procrastinated, and there's a system to do that. You know the deadline's coming up, so you do a little bit here, you work here, or you have to pull it all-nighter, so you preload on caffeine, whatever that is. But now, when students procrastinate, they're just going to a site and plagiarizing, or they're being dishonest about their academic integrity, and that's where the issue comes from. I love this quote from my source from Future of Testing Education. Artificial intelligence can help students learn better and faster when paired with high quality learning materials and instruction. There is that human piece that has to be there. Kids can't learn from computers. They have to have humans and great computer tools to do so. So think of AI in a comparison like this. It's like an athlete using a performance enhancing drug. So in the beginning, athletes were just tested for steroids, very simple. And we just checked for plagiarism from Google or one plagiarism checker. But now for athletes, there's so many different substances that they're used for to ensure that their performance is based on their raw talent, just like in education. There are so many sites students are using to enhance their performance. And now we have to figure out a way to see, is that the student's talent or are they using outside tools? Go ahead and change the slide. So these are just a few of the sites I've seen students use. Most common, Brainly and Quora. Now, I'd love to hear about some that are being accessed at the higher level. This was mostly based off of high school level education, and I'm sure it's happening everywhere. Photomath and Mathway are two apps on their phone. Kids take a picture of a math problem, and it actually gives step-by-step instructions of how to do the problem. Now, I'll admit, I have used Mathway to help my son with his math homework, but it was only used to tell me, oh my goodness, this is the step I needed to do, and this is what I had to do. I was using it as a tool instead of a cheating tool. Yes, Greg, that Chat GPT for essay writing, it's scary. I've never heard of Bing Chat. I'm gonna have to look into that one more. Is that one more for writing, or what topic, what content area that applies to? Oh, okay. Yep. Wow. See, it just came out in the past 2 weeks. How in the world are we supposed to think and consider all of these different sites? OpenAI is actually a pretty scary one because students, when they're working in that, it automatically puts them into incognito mode. So there's no way to go back in their search history or to even have, a trail of what led them there. And on that site, OpenAI can finish assignment they've already started. They can just give instructions and OpenAI will produce the assignment. They can write essays, even science labs. It's crazy. Essay Pro is another one where someone will write an essay for them. I always love it when a student will work with me and they'll open up Brainly and I see they have the paid subscription. Oh my goodness, that is alarming. No, thank you. I do want to open up a site. So Jesse, it's the one that's gradebees.com, the additional site that I had there, or the tab. In my research, I came across this article and it's geared towards college kids. And I was blown away by what it showed. Wonderful. So when I first accessed this, I thought, okay, it's just going to tell me the most commonly used homework cheat websites. And if you look down there, college life is exciting, but often comes with a series of assignments that can overwhelm a student. And then it says, however, you do not have to submit your assignments late or miss out on deadlines because of lack of time. And then it goes on to really promote these cheat websites. They have competent and fast academic helpers. It can be pointless to spend your time completing a statistics assignment when you don't have any intention of becoming a statistician. It's appalling that they're promoting this. Now, if you read further, and you'll have my presentation, so you can do that later, they do say that you probably shouldn't do it, but then they also say chances of you getting caught are pretty slim, and that 2 out of every 9 graduates use these sites. And then it goes on to some that we've mentioned below. Go ahead and log in here and get your essay written, or Quizlet can provide those common test questions that are in banks across the country. It's pretty scary that they're actually promoting these sites to use for cheating. And the reasons why down below. Better grades, if you're busy, don't worry about it. Use one of these sites. And that scares me. All right, Jesse, you can go ahead and go back to the presentation. Thank you. All right, go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we have to move beyond plagiarism, which is just taking credit for work you didn't do. Basically, if it was an original thought, and you copy and pasted someone's words or even paraphrased it incorrectly, that's plagiarism. In higher education, the consequences are much higher. But the issue is the plagiarism policies have not evolved with this artificial intelligence movement that's coming along. Because if a student were to say, plagiarism, I stole someone else's work, well, an AI machine created it. So technically it is original work. They just didn't do it. So our definitions need to be much clearer. I found over the years that there are 3 reasons for students to commit academic dishonesty. The first one's panic. They do not have the pro in procrastination yet. They've put it off too late, and now they need something to turn in. A lot of kids think if they turn it in, the teacher will send it back going, hey, this isn't your original work, please redo it. When they need to understand the consequences of they could fail a class, they can be expelled. There are so many harsh consequences that can take place because of that, which is why it's important in those lower grades, even in middle school, to start educating students on the severity of academic dishonesty. Sometimes a student simply does not understand the work, and so they will copy and paste work in or use a tool to cheat and complete it. This happens mostly in math or sciences when the content is a bit more complicated and there is academic vocabulary to go along with it. So again, they'll turn something in hopes that the teacher will either not catch it or send it back and have a little sympathy and let them redo it. And then there are those kids that do it just because it's the easy way out. They'll copy and paste work, turn it in, cross their fingers, and move on. These are the students that are usually the repeat offenders. These are the ones that would end up in my office as a dean of students, and it's easier, and half the time they don't even get caught. So why not do it? Make sure that your school or university or college has an updated policy regarding academic dishonesty. You can actually go ahead and scan that QR code in the top. This is the academic policy I helped create at my past school, and it really goes into the integrity piece of it. It includes plagiarism, use of online sites to complete work, or using a tool to provide answers. And again, parents would get so upset when they were disciplined because they'd say they're problem solving. They didn't know how to do it. They used the tool and they did it. Or another, they were using their resources. But I'd have to remind them that bottom line, if teachers are unable to see if a student could demonstrate mastery, it was academic dishonesty, period. If they can't demonstrate the acquired knowledge and apply it to an assignment or task, they can use other tools to produce results. That's academic dishonesty for sure. And that's true, Connie, they are plagiarizing, absolutely. Diane, that's great that you're even addressing ChatGPT. Then they know you're onto it too. Yes, absolutely beat the cheat for sure. Yeah, that's a great point. They are plagiarizing from a sheet rather than a person, for sure. And that's a great point that it does include English language learners. That is very common. Thank you for bringing that up too. Absolutely. So on that sample academic integrity policy, it does address the use of tools. But then if you're on it and you scroll to the second page, notice that there is a clear outline of offenses. Now, I know that higher education, there's not many chances for that. There's no parent involvement. But ensure that students know that they have to sign some kind of document at the beginning of the year, or in your syllabus, then you have to do that. Now, Alethea, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. What if they reference it? Absolutely. Yes, you can totally take credit for that. However, it does come back to, can a student demonstrate their knowledge and mastery of the concept or content without these tools? Because if they can't, then they use the tool to get the grade or have it appear like they know what to do. So how do we hold students accountable to original work when algorithms and technological tools stand in our way? And Alethea, excuse me, you nailed it right then. The answer is authentic assessments for sure. Go ahead and change the slide, please. So a few years ago, I got the best compliment of my entire teaching career. I was teaching 10th grade world history, and toward the end of the semester, one of my students had fallen way behind and was trying to complete their work in 4 days. So almost a quarter's worth of work in 4 days. Now you know where this is going. Yes. So one day after school, he's working in my classroom and I see him throw his pencil in the air and slap his desk, and he just groaned in frustration. And I asked him what was wrong, and he said, "I can't find any of the answers to your questions on Google." Oh, it was the best compliment ever, because I know I had reached a point where this student can't just search for my answers. He actually has to work for them and think for them. And that's the goal. We need to get kids away from this thinking they can find everything online and not learn it and just produce one product and spit it out and be done, and actually have to understand the concepts and apply it to different things. So have you ever had moments in your classroom where you can see the frustration of learning taking over? And what do you notice about students' response to that frustration? Feel free to share any experiences you've got in the chat box, because it is interesting to see that point hit where they're just frustrated, or they're done, or they want to quit, or they just want to wait for someone else to answer them, even you, the teacher or professor. It's always kind of fun to witness it though, because you know that true learning is really happening. Or perhaps you've seen a student buckle down, accept that challenge that they can't find their work online, or use AI to complete anything, and then give it their best effort. That's the dream right there. So this is really what authentic assessments provide. It's that process of learning and effort. That's the goal. Go ahead and change the slide. So typical assessments of knowledge, and these are very common, are multiple choice quizzes and tests, or essays that are assigned as homework, research papers, and so on. Those informational texts that to create or research are very easy to plagiarize, and they're more tempted to use those tools. Whereas if you had a response a prompt as to how the research applies to something, or how the information affects blah, 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 it does make it a bit more difficult. Destiny, yes, that immediate gratification. Yeah, it is kind of fun to see me hit the wall though. So most of these basic assessments are a one-time look at the knowledge. A quick product is produced. Let's say it's the test, or I'm sure you've all had those projects in school where you create a mission, like in California, or you build a diorama. What is it actually testing? What can students really do with those? So then students just move on from that, and they're not really learning the information. But authentic assessment moves beyond the knowledge students possess to how they can apply that knowledge. It really evaluates if a student can take what they've learned and apply it to a real world problem or a scenario or a situation, usually outside the classroom. Now, when assessments are authentic, students must justify their work. There's that justification piece to it. So let's say you have a 9th grade student that struggles in writing, or a freshman in college. And their typical work would sound something like this. Romeo and Juliet is a great play. There are many good characters in the story. Bam, pretty basic. But then suddenly they turn in this masterful piece of writing that sounds like this. The tragic story of Romeo and Juliet brings decision-making and the troubles of youth to light through the complex characterization of so many involved in the play. Ding, your educator light bulb goes off, something is wrong. This is when you can provide an authentic assessment through conversation and have a meeting with that student during office hours, after class, during lunch. A lot of times during my class time, I would have live grading sessions where I'm not going to go home and grade your paper on my own. I'm going to pull you over and have you sit with me while I grade it and then talk about it. Have them explain what they meant or elaborate on certain examples or some reasoning they provided, because conversations reveal a lot. it is pretty tricky to cheat while talking and having to think of things on your own. Authentic assessment does require that high quality piece of work. And this will take more time and more effort from students and educators. But think of what they'll learn through the process beyond the content. They'll learn grit, focus, and most importantly, they'll know what success feels like. And that can be make a huge positive impact on their mental health, their education moving forward, and the integrity they want to demonstrate moving forward. They know what it feels like to actually work. So a few examples of authentic assessments could be students making a video or a demonstration of some content, even having students design projects or assignments or backward assessments. They teach a concept and they design the assessment for other students to complete. That's a very powerful tool to use that shows they know the content, they know the important parts of the content, and move on from there. Oral exams are great because they're on the spot and require knowledge. Just like that conversation I just mentioned with the student who most likely plagiarized an essay, it really does hold them accountable to that. There was one time I had a student, we were reading Catcher in the Rye, and it was very clear that about half my class was not reading it. They were reading the Spark Notes online. So they showed up to class one day and I said, all right, everyone's going to work on A, B, and C. Well, I pull each student out into the hallway and I'm only going to ask you 2 questions about the book. And the panic that came across their face was kind of hilarious to me. So one young man came out, and before I even asked the question, I could tell he was trying to distract me. And he was saying everything he could remember, probably from Spark Notes, about the book. But here's the thing. The book was called Catcher in the Rye. And for about 3 minutes, this young man referred to the book as Pitcher in the Rye. Wrong baseball position, not even about baseball. It was hilarious to me. So I sat and listened to him. And then I said, I can tell you didn't read the book because of this. And he just went white. And I said, you've got a week to read the book, come back and be sure you know the title. So that one just stands out to me so much. Pitcher in the Rye instead of catcher. He had no clue what he was talking about. So remember, you can pull students out during class or again, during your office hours or your lunch period and just ask them a few questions. You can even pull random questions from a multiple choice test and have them justify their answer. There's that justification piece that adds so much authenticity to assessments. Reflection meetings are also great tools for authentic assessments because it requires that metacognition and students to really own not only their product, but their process of learning as well. And that has shown such a high return on their learning over time. So basically, authentic assessments require in-person or on Zoom if you're virtual and some kind of accountability piece there. So students must demonstrate learning in a live setting before you. Are there any other ideas about authentic assessment that you've had success with? And Laura, I'm going to read your comment real quick. Having them draw photosynthesis or taking turns. That's fantastic. Oh, I love that you compliment the work and then they present it. That's amazing. That's a huge piece of accountability. They can't lose their reputation in front of their peers. I love that idea. Good. That's great that you, right from the beginning of the semester, let them know that. Absolutely. All right, go ahead and move on to the next slide, please. So while AI can provide a lot of assistance to students, there are things artificial intelligence cannot do for your students. And this is what I want to emphasize. So many times people can walk away going, yeah, it's hopeless. I'm going to spend 80% of my career just double checking if kids actually do this. But there's things that you're doing beyond artificial intelligence that are making such a huge impact. AI cannot provide the education that comes with being off of a screen. So for younger kids running around outside or playing at recess, or any age child, the power of turning a page in a book, or watching chemicals mix in a science lab, or seeing something in action, even a debate during class. Artificial intelligence can never teach those skills. And while AI can provide avatars and chat rooms where students can chat, they aren't learning those true social skills. So while at school, students can learn how to look each other in the eye, give a handshake, or learn how to play by the rules in a social setting. For instance, don't interrupt other people, or don't be that one-upper in the conversation, things like that. Or even just simply learning how to listen and respond. Those basic skills went by the wayside during COVID. So AI cannot teach them that while they were at home. They need that interaction piece with other humans. One important skill AI cannot teach is the ability to argue or agree to disagree. And I think we can all agree that the skill of respectfully arguing or agreeing to disagree is lacking in today's harsh political climate. The cancel culture is huge, and kids understand that and think that that's an actual solution to things. So learning how to compromise or to discuss opinions and then move forward without hatred or ghosting or blocking, it's a valuable skill that I think every student and young adult needs right now. So while students are spending much of their time on social media, where AI again predicts the ads they're seeing, technology cannot teach students to know how to manage their behaviors and attitudes. Adulting requires that we cannot say everything that comes to mind, or use an email or text to break bad news, even though people still do that. Students can learn that skill at school with amazing educators like you. They can understand coping skills, what's acceptable and what's not, when to excuse yourself and when to just handle something. AI cannot teach those skills. And industries around the world, and I'm sure you all know this because of your college experience, they're looking for skills like creativity and collaboration and problem solving. These are very difficult skills for AI to teach these kids. Kids learn this by interacting with you and their peers. There's a world beyond Google that we can prepare our students for, and artificial intelligence cannot do that. Next slide. So no matter how advanced in artificial intelligence or technology becomes, you are irreplaceable. Nothing can replace the way you build relationships with your students. Nothing can replace your instant response to what a student needs. Nothing can replace how quickly you adjust to changes and problems that arise. And nothing can replace the value you add to your school by caring and working hard and holding these kids accountable. Next slide. So thank you so much for your time today and your interactions and your ideas. I'm going to look up Bing chat as soon as I get off of here. I truly enjoy working with educators like you. Feel free to take down my contact information and reach out if you have any questions or thoughts. And we'll soon have coursework around artificial intelligence and would love to have you along for a class. So keep in touch with me. Enjoy the rest of your school year and enjoy the rest of your day in this conference. And thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you all. Yeah, thank you guys for coming. Have a great day. Happy Friday Eve. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Adrianne.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse.